Hey guys, welcome to Awaken to Now. I'm going to play a little clip. We're going to be moving on. I'm not going to tell you, you might recognize this fellow's name, but just listen to the next 3 minutes or so. And irrespective of whether or not you know who he is or you don't, listen to the content of what he has to say. Try to avoid an either or. He's completely wrong. Something to demonize him over. Or see if you can find some middle ground, but really listen to what he says. Listen to the content closely, and put some space around the words. So here we go.
Language, if we have any kind of decency, but we were intentionally. This was intentionally concealed from us, right? The government did it. They used classification. Companies did it. They intentionally didn't talk about it. They denied these things were going. They said, you agreed to this, and you didn't agree to nothing like this. I'm sorry, right? They go, we put that terms of service page up, and you clicked that. You clicked a button that said, I agree, because you were trying to open an account so you could talk to your friends. You were trying to get driving directions. You were trying to get an email account. You weren't trying to agree to some 600-page legal form that even if you read, you wouldn't understand. And it doesn't matter even if you did understand, because one of the very first paragraphs in it said, this agreement can be changed at any time unilaterally without your consent by the company, right? They have built a legal paradigm that presumes records collected about us do not belong to us. This is sort of one of the core principles on which mass surveillance from the government's perspective in the United States is legal. And you have to understand that all the stuff we talk about today, the government says everything they do is legal, right? And they go, so it's fine. Our perspective as a public should be, well, that's actually the problem, because this isn't okay. The scandal isn't how they're breaking the law. The scandal is that they don't have to break the law. And the way they say they're not breaking the law is something called the third-party doctrine. Third-party doctrine is a legal principle derived from a case in, I believe, the 1970s called Smith versus Maryland. And Smith was this knucklehead who was harassing this lady, making phone calls to her house. And when she would pick up, he'd just, I don't know, sit there heavy breathing, whatever, like a classic creeper. And, you know, it was terrifying, this poor lady. So she calls the cops and says, one day I got one of these phone calls, and then I see this car creeping past my house on the street, and she got a license plate number. So she goes to the cops, and she goes, is this the guy? And the cops, again, they're trying to do a good thing here. They look up his license plate number, and they find out where this guy is, and then they go, well, what phone number is registered to that house? And they go to the phone company, and they say, can you give us this record? And the phone company says, yeah, sure. And it's the guy. The cops got their man, right? So they go arrest this guy, and then in court, his lawyer brings all this stuff up, and they go, you did this without a warrant. That was the problem. Was they went to the phone company and they got the records without a warrant. They just asked for it, or they subpoenaed it, right? Some lower standard of legal review. And the company gave it to him and got the guy. They marched him off to jail. And they could have gotten a warrant, right? But it was just expedience. They just didn't want to take the time. The small town cops, you can understand how it happens. They know the guy's a creeper. They just want to get him off to jail. And so they made a mistake, but the government doesn't want to let it go. They fight on this. And they go, it wasn't actually, they weren't his records. And so because they didn't belong to him, he didn't have a Fourth Amendment right to demand a warrant be issued for them. They were the company's records, and the company provided them voluntarily, and hence no warrant was required, because you can give whatever you want without a warrant as long as it's yours. Now here's the problem. The government extrapolated a principle in a single case of a single known suspected criminal who they had real good reasons to suspect was their guy, and used that to go to a company and get records from them and establish a precedent that these records don't belong to the guy, they belong to the company. And then they said, well, if one person doesn't have a Fourth Amendment interest in records held by a company, No one does. And so the company then has absolute proprietary ownership of all of these records about all of our lives. And remember, this is back in the 1970s. The internet hardly exists in these kind of contexts. Smartphones, don't exist. Modern society, modern communications don't exist. This is the very beginning of the technological era. And flash forward now 40 years, and they are still relying on this precedent about this one, pervy creeper to go, nobody has a privacy right for anything that's held by a company. And so long as they do that, companies are going to be extraordinarily powerful, and they're going to be extraordinarily abusive. And this is something that people don't get. They go, oh, well, it's data collection, right? They're exploiting data. This is data about human lives. It is data about people. These records are about you. It's not data that's being exploited. It's people that are being exploited. It's not data that's being manipulated. It's you that's being manipulated. And this is something that I think a lot of people are beginning to understand. The problem is the companies and the governments are still pretending they don't understand or disagreeing with this. And this reminds me of something that one of my old friends, John Perry Barlow, who served with me at the Freedom of the Press Foundation, I'm the president of the board, used to say to me, which is, you can't awaken someone who's pretending to be.
Can't awaken someone who's pretending to be asleep. Once the pretending gets bad enough, it's got to go. It doesn't matter who that was. I encourage you to look it up. You probably recognize the voice. You could probably run a Google on it, Siri. You'll figure out something. But remember what the source is. Either something is true or it's not. If you're driving with your brakes on, you better stop driving that way. If you're trying to protect your life, you're going to lose it. If once you just say, I realize what I am what I am. It's maybe a little more down-to-earth science fiction, whatever you want to call it. It's really very simple. There's nothing that really can hurt you. When somebody makes fun of you and you take an insult personally, is the entire design of an insult meant to be personal? That's it. So just think of that in just a few minutes, and just kind of let some of the nonsense go. If you need to, if you want to, just see your own bullshit, your own PR, however you're playing it, and just, you call me out on it, whatever. If somebody does, if you're right, I'm an asshole, or whatever it is. I mean, it doesn't mean that's what you are. The only way you're going to stay that way is to keep defending your being an asshole. If I was an asshole, all right, at least that's what you were. So I'm sure that makes some sense. I hope it does. I'm sure it does, especially if you're a fervent person, fervent, fearful man, woman. So take that and run with it. Have a good day.